Hey everybody, we're doing a little wacky stuff today because we were giggling and we couldn't get the mics to work, and now he's got a broken anklet.
I broke my canklet.
Yes. So I want to get this out of the way.
Hey, what's up, internet? How you doing?
Now we got that out of the way. No, super chats. We don't know what we're gonna do. People have been asking me, "What are you gonna do on the Real Fish Talk about them super chats?"
Yeah, what are we gonna do?
And so for now, here's what I'm gonna say. If you super chat us that says, Corey, you're ridiculously awesome, we're just going to skip that. If you have a well-formulated question that is pertinent to the topic or we want to answer, we will answer it. If it is not one of those things, we are going to skip it. So I want everyone to know right now, if you super chat $4 billion and it just says, "Durr," and we skip it, you can't get mad at us.
What if it says meow?
Yeah, we might read that one out, but I want to try to get some continuity to the show. Not that we have any, because we go off the tracks. But if we're off the tracks and the super chat's off the tracks, there's no coming back.
Then we don't even have a train anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then our train.
So just a forewarning of that, so that I don't want people to get angry.
Up here. I want to get up here with
I was trying to. I'm
Were
trying
you
to get us
scooting
into
back?
proportion.
Were
Yeah.
you scooting back and I was scooting forward?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So cute. What's going on?
So, we doing this? What are you doing?
I forgot to plug my phone over here, so hold on.
From the chat, thoughts on Stenker discus? My thoughts are they seem super cool because they're not as finicky when it comes to pH. But I've never kept them. You can't find it. Your plug list?
I was checking down here for the gnomes and stuff, you know?
We do have Nightbot working for us today, which it's telling everyone to
in full effect.
to pledge to our Patreons. I think that's the long-term goal, is support us as creators instead of just supporting one show.
That's the long-term goal, yeah. Yeah, that is.
It gets into it's a weird thing, but
it's a long conversation. We'll have that conversation at some point.
Whose birthday is it?
Evan Busey. Maybe it's Busey.
It's Bussy.
Busey.
Yeah, well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Evan.
I'd say bro, but I don't know you, and that comes off weird. And I don't say bro enough to pull that off. So
Who's bro enough? What, bro?
yeah, bro.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
My bray.
All right, here we go. Here's the first serious question of the day. You ready? Have either of you built a water change hook in lieu of the Python hook?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mine was a disaster. Well, not a disaster. Mine was not optimal.
They work well if you get the dimensions correct. If you can get it like just right, it does.
I tried to improve the Python hook, and that's where I went wrong. Is I built like a PVC hook, right? But then I wanted the spinny deal because the Python hook doesn't have a spinny deal. And after some use of all the employees and getting dropped and kind of like, we need to reach to the farthest tank in the store, so it's kind of like,
right.
That connection was leaky. And so it probably could have been done better, but I didn't save much money because I built it before the Python hook existed. I want to say I used like a brass piece, and that thing was like $4 or $5, like the pipe thread to garden hose adapter, because I ran a garden hose for the store.
Yeah, those are like $4 or $5.
And then the swirly deal was like $1 probably. And then you got some other parts. So I was probably into it for like $8 or $9 because I already owned the glue. And it worked, but it's ugly.
They take a beating. I mean, realistically, if anybody's looking for like a real solution, basically what you want to do is set up a separate mix valve somewhere. And a mix valve is basically what it's going to do is going to take your hot water, your cold water. You have one over there.
I do have one over there, yeah.
I mean, I can be like, Corey, you know what I'm talking about? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, so let me try to explain this. But to you guys out there, it takes your cold water, your hot water, and it will combine
It's what your shower does.
That's what your shower does, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's going to combine them, and then you're going to have to take a what's commonly referred to as a PTO, so power takeoff is what it stands for. Everyone just says power. Everyone just says PTO if you're like splitting something to go somewhere else. You're basically just taking some of the flow from the...
Is that fancy words for a T valve? Or like not even a valve, but a T?
Basically a T, but a T with a valve on it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not always doing that.
Huh.
And it would look, from that point, it would look something like a garden spigot, basically. Is that you have like a, and you turn it on, you turn it off, and then you just hook your hose up to that and run that out.
Well, that makes sense.
To go, instead of going from the sink, and then the hook that goes, so the hook that goes into the tank is basically just a return at that point, and it's a lot easier to manage that way.
I will say, I think someone mentioned it there, the best part about the DIY is you can put the you can put a T where it's coming in, so the water comes out to the side instead of hammering
and
down.
then going straight down. Yeah. And then so from your water supply going into the tank, then you can just make a basic hook. There's really just nothing crazy about it. And then if you want the siphon part of it, just make a separate siphon for draining, to drain wherever you're going to drain to. I do have a bunch of stuff coming up on that in the next couple months, so nobody freak out on me if next week I'm not making a video on it, but I do have a bunch of that stuff going on because my fish room's going to be going through its second stage of evolution, basically.
I'll tell you the video I want to see made, all right? I want it so that the layman, me, because I'm not a plumber or, like, I'm handy enough to make a mess. I want to know how, like, in my bathroom sink or something, I could make, like, a cut and then use, like, shark bite valves and a little bit of PEX with that PTO valve thing you were talking about. So that way I only ever hook up down low.
That's what the mix valve would do. That would already do that.
You'd have to, but would you have to install you would, because you can only get hot or cold.
Yeah. So that's why you need that mix valve, and that mix valve would come from either from the PTO, right?
Yeah.
Or it would come ahead. You see what I'm saying? So you'd have like the full water supply. But most like regular people, if they were going to be setting it up, you basically want to be messing with the 3/8 braided hose, that steel braided hose. That's what you'd want to be messing with, because you can unscrew that. It's got a gasket in it already.
Yeah.
So it's, and then there's actual pieces that you can, there's T's that you can put in there, right? That you would just screw it together. Nothing really confusing. And then you could run the braided hose to your mix valve. So you can actually go that route. Although your flow is not going to be as strong as, say, a garden hose, because it's it's a 3/8 hose instead of a 1/2 inch.
But I guess I was thinking, like, in my previous life, before I had this house, I was always limited by, like, renting. And I was like, is there something...
That's basically the way I'm
I could put it
explaining
back before I move out and be like, ha-ha!
Yeah, basically, if you're going to do the braided hoses, if you go that direction, that is a way that you could take back out, put it back together like you were never
So
there.
that's the video I want to see, because that helps me as,
Actually,
like, a renter.
Yeah, we should actually make one of those. We could do that with, like, your sink, one of your sinks or something, and just set it up and then take it apart or something, put it back. I think I have most of the parts for it. The mix valve, and by the way, anybody out there, the mix valve is going to be the most expensive part. If you are trying to stay on the super cheaps, here's what I would recommend. I would go to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever big hardware store out there that's near you, and find something like a shower mix valve that is on super discount, because almost always they have like a clearance area for electrical supplies, plumbing supplies, whatever. So you'd want to go to like the bathroom shower clearance area and then find a mix valve that maybe a customer previously opened up and like screwed up the box or something, so it ended up moved over to the clearance bin. And here's a little hot tip for anybody out there, that if you go to Home Depot, right? You go to the Home Depot's, right? The orange store, which is where I normally go, by the way. Home Depot, feel free to give me a call if you like. But if you go to Home Depot and you see the clearance price, right? And let's say it's $19.99 originally, right? And then it's like, oh, it's on clearance for $14.66, right? And you're like, oh, cool. That's like $5.33. The last digit of their markdown is how many more times they can mark it down.
So, like, once it gets to 1, they're like, it's
Once
never
it gets
getting
to
cheaper.
0.
Oh.
So let's say it gets all the way down to $13.00. That last digit right there means it'll never go below that price ever.
They'll just throw it away or whatever, damage it out.
Or
whatever
they'll just
they
leave
do.
it there until it sells because it basically, if that last number gets down to 0, that means it's basically their cost, pretty much. And that's like their break-even point.
So when you see an 8, you know you're like, oh, they just discounted that.
They just discounted this thing. It's a code so that it's easily referenced by the people that work there.
Yeah.
That they just go like, oh, that one's at a 3. Maybe let's motivate this thing out of here somehow.
At a 3, like if their schedule's once a month, they're like, this thing's been here for 8 months.
Yeah, this thing has been here for a grip. Like, can we mark it down again? You know, I'm a big fan of Home Depot. I love it. I love that store. But that's a hot tip for anybody that is going there on a regular basis, and you're kind of looking around at the clearance stuff. If you see that last number on there, remember, oh, they just marked this thing down. If it's like the last digit is a 7, you're like, oh, they just marked it down.
Yeah.
Maybe I can wait. But if you can't wait, that's where it gets a little bit tricky because you're like, dude, I better buy it now because I can't wait.
I like that video series. We could add in the like a carbon block filter and that kind of stuff. Like make it a little bit like here's the basic thing. Let's add this step in.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. We'll do that.
It's kind of a chain, but you know.
You know what we should do? We should go to second use.
Well, I want to build it out of stuff that Home Depot or Lowe's. So that way people don't have to be like, they didn't have one at the second use store. Where do I find it?
Well, no, I'm just saying that you and I should just go to second use.
Yeah.
And we can get an old sink for like $8 with the cabinet on it, and then we can
have
we
the
can shoot
actual,
videos
we can
on
have
it
like
all
the
day.
showroom model, you know, like, oh, let me show you. You know, you got a thing like this thing, right?
I'm just being a cheapskate. I'm like, we could actually just go get a sink, you know.
Yeah. All right. Let's find another tantalizing question. Got some African cichlid, basic Oscar care. I feel like basic Oscar care is a little too basic. Like that's a Google thing, you know. There's the whole Oscar forums, which people are fanatical about. You can definitely get your care on an Oscar there. Even a Petco, they got the pamphlet that'll start setting you straight.
Yeah, Oscar care. Yeah, I would
you
just
bring it with like Oscar breeding.
Quick.
I can talk about that.
I would just say quick super chat, or not super chat. Sorry, I just forgot this super chat. I would say quick Google search, and I would say that like the one thing I would look out for Oscar care is that if you are somebody who's new to fish keeping, bear in mind that there's not a lot of tank mates for them. They do get bigger than most people think. They are a fairly aggressive fish. So just keep that stuff in mind. The water parameters are pretty wide for them. Feeding is pretty wide. You just don't want a bunch of other fish in there.
If you're new to fish keeping, an Oscar is like being 15 and thinking like, yeah, I should get a pit bull. You know, it's like, but you haven't had a dog. Like, yeah, but pit bulls are cool. Like, yes, Oscars are cool, but maybe when you're 30, you're like, oh, that's the right dog for me. I needed an Australian Shepherd.
It's one of those weird things where you're like, when you're new to fish keeping and then you go to the store and you see a green terror for $4.99, right? And you're like, that is a super cool
Half
looking
of it's because
fish.
they're already this big, and you're going, wait, that thing's $5, and this Cardinal Tetra's $4?
Right.
Oh, I think I know who's ripping who off here.
I think I know how much fish I'm getting. So
yeah,
I guess if that would be Oscar care, I guess that would be our quick and dirty is like, watch out, do a little bit of research, make sure it's something that you want to get in on. But I do want an Australian.
Some good tank mates.
I want a blue heeler again, speaking of dogs. But anyhow.
I figure you just get one when you have your baby, right?
I got 2 old dogs right now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, they look, well, yeah, if you get a puppy, that's not good with old dogs.
I think what we're going to do, hopefully Vicky's not watching because I have not discussed this with her. But either way, if we have, we're going to have our dogs until our dogs are no longer around, and then we'll probably get like 2 or 3 puppies at the same time and introduce them all at the same time. Oh my God, my microphone.
Is that yours?
That's my microphone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what'd you do?
Does it smell like teriyaki?
Did you spray Axe body spray on this thing? What is that?
I think it has Irish Spring.
Sweet baby Jesus, smell that. I mean, it's not bad. It's just strong.
I mean, I'm with Jimmy a lot. Yeah, it smells like Jimmy. Have you ever been in his car? It's like a tornado of that smell.
I've been spooning Jimmy.
Yeah. So we've got some super chats, and I know some people probably came to the show after the beginning of the show. So I'm letting you know that we're not necessarily answering all super chats and that type of thing. We did a preamble, basically. We let everyone know that was going to happen. So we're picking and choosing the questions based on what we want to talk about. And I had something lined up, and then I totally forgot about it. So I'm going to fill in currently with Andrew's super chat. He's looking for some good tank mates. He's got some mountain minnows, some hillstream loaches, bamboo, and a mono shrimp with some power heads. And the reason I just want to talk about that is I've come very close to bringing home like 20 bamboo shrimp just for my living room tank.
I love them.
But I don't necessarily want to feed them that much powdered food all the time. So, but as far as tank mates go, I feel like that's an unheated tank maybe. You know, I would get like rice fish or maybe Danios or something. But if it's heated, like sky's the limit. Mm-hmm. You know, like those fish you have pretty much go with everything.
Personally, I feel like you've got it on lockdown already. I would just up the ante on what you have. Like I would slowly.
So if there's 6 of each of those, you want 60 of each?
Yeah, just start building those colonies. Bring home some quarantine ones, add them in, and just bring those up.
Go to your local fish store.
The minnows would be the awesome free swimmers. The hillstream loaches are doing all their slow stuff. The bamboo shrimp are doing their, and then the Amano shrimps are moving all around. I think you got pretty good stocking and pretty good movement. I would just up the ante on what you got there. I mean, everybody loves a big school, right?
Go to your local fish store.
And minnows, by the way, I can say specifically, I did have a giant school of minnows, the White Cloud Mountain Minnows, at one point in time, and I loved the hell out of it. It was awesome.
I had like 200 of them, and I did not love it.
You didn't like it?
It was okay, but it was not as, like, I brought them outside.
They're not as cool as the Rummy-Nose Tetras because they don't move
for sure
as much together, but it was still
cool. I was proud of it, but I got bored of it like after like 3 months. I was like, yeah. Like for some reason.
Busy drinking haterade, bruh.
Yeah. Anyway, go to your local fish store. Start the sentence with real talk. How much is it for 60 bamboo shrimp? I guarantee they won't have an answer.
They won't have an answer for that, no.
But I'd be like, I don't know, but I'm interested. What are we doing?
Most every store brings in like 3 at a time or 9.
Yeah, we only bring in like 6, and last time I brought in like 12. And we do neon tetras and bamboo shrimp, and it looks on point. And that's why I keep going like, should I take them all home right now? Should I take them all? But I haven't yet. We did add crabs to the 230 gallon, and they're just doing their work on that algae. Fiddler crabs.
I gotta get some of those.
Yeah, they're feeders for the puffers, but here's my goal. My no maintenance tank, after like 4 months, it'll lose like an inch of water finally. Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave that inch down so that the fiddler crabs can get up on the spiderwood and get out if they want. That's my goal. We'll see.
That's your goal.
I mean, my goal is they eat all the algae, but then I want them just to hang out and be like, check it out. I got fiddler crabs and I'm doing it right.
Oh.
We'll see.
All right. I appreciate that.
Worst case scenario, I bring them over to Ladybird and they meet their intended purpose when I bought them to be puffer food. So right now, I'm just letting them live the life, you know.
Them spoofer food.
Mm-hmm. I like the name Meat Man, formerly Pork Slinger.
Yeah, he used to be the pork slinger, but then they got mad at him.
The YouTubes?
I forget if it wasn't YouTube. I think it was Facebook. Facebook got super mad at him. He's a great guy. I love it. He's always throwing up good comments and stuff. I dig him. But he had to go through all these name changes because Pork Slinger was apparently not good for Facebook because he's a pig butcher. So there's got to be a word for that, like maybe Pork Slinger. He's a butcher.
Yeah,
of the pork variety.
I know my cousin before he started working for us.
There's got to be a name for that.
He was like legit. I think he was a sausage maestro.
Yeah.
Like all he did was make sausages for like Whole Foods or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I thought he was full of it, and then I was like, oh, that's a thing? What? Like, I mean, I know like making sausage is a thing, but the name of that, I was like, you had to make that up, and nope, you get that position.
It's like a cheesemonger.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Stacy with the highlighted question from Jimmy, how do I convince my husband to let me set up a 250-gallon tank I got for free?
I'm not allowed to talk about that on this show.
For free. That's hard, because the free part It's like, no, you could just give it away. You got nothing invested.
Right. Ooh, that's true. Is it nice?
Yeah,
Is it
that's
nice
is it
250?
nice? Yeah.
That's the question. Because it sounds like to me, this might be one of those free tanks that's kind of a disaster.
Could be.
And normally, I've noticed, this is for sure with my spouse, I'll tell you that. She's like, what are you doing? Like, messing around with this whole setup, blah, blah, blah. Not like in a bad way. She's more just like, you're wasting your time on this old.
Yeah.
Quit polishing this turd. So that would be my question right there. Would be like, maybe this is just kind of a disaster of a tank.
Well, let's put aside that if it's a disaster, it's a hard thing to sell. If it's not a disaster, here's the way I've seen the opposite work. Like, a guy sets it up in the garage and starts spending a lot of time in the garage. And then, let's say the wife wants to hang out with the husband, doesn't want to be in the garage, then the tank gets to come inside. So maybe that's the move of like, well, I really want to set this up. I'll set up in the garage. No one's using this space. And then eventually they'll be like, you're always in the garage. But you actually have got to spend time out there. Otherwise, you just have a tank you're not looking at. You know, so you got to make it like a fish cave. And now's the perfect time, by the way, because it's like summer, so you're not going to go broke. But you could like set it up, enjoy it a ton, and then as September is coming on, be like, it's going to cost us like $7 billion through the winter, right? Like there is that spot right over there. This thing fits, so you might try something like that. But the other thing you could try is like, when's your birthday? When's Christmas? Like, this is what I want. And then it's pretty hard to say no to like, no, I don't want you to buy me anything. I just want this. Like, I want it that bad that this is my thing.
Like, you don't have to get me anything. I just want to be able to do this thing. Yeah.
And usually time is a thing too. Like, that's how I've always broken down my spouse.
Don't ask for 100% of what you want necessarily. Marriage, relationships, they're about compromise, like they really are.
Well, and that's been my thing. Like, anything that seems crazy, if you still want it like 8 months, 2 years down the road, like your partner will be like, wow, you really want this. Like, that's probably mostly what you're going through right now is like, you got a free 250. It seems insane because you're ready to install it tomorrow, and they haven't caught up with or you could be like an impulsive person like me, and my wife's going like, you're going to set that up and you're going to be bored in 6 minutes. So how about we just not even set it up and just move on?
And just move on to something else.
So, but if, 2 years down the road, she'd be like, yeah, you still want to do it. So clearly
Stacy is saying the garage might work. He's already letting me turn the dining room into a fish room. So it's already happening.
Yeah. So I think you're falling more into that, like, yeah, you're going to set up that 250, and then there's a free 75 you picked up next week that's getting set up, and like that kind of thing's going on, and they're probably yeah. And so
I would say personally, I've fallen down that road for sure, with way too many tanks, too many projects going on. It's super easy to do that in the aquarium hobby because you get one set up, it's running, and then it's like, well, now I got to set up another one, and oftentimes. There's a lot of perception out there, which may or may not be accurate, but there are a lot of YouTube channels. If you watch them, they're just constantly setting up tanks.
You mean Aquapros?
Well, not to name names.
Call it like I see it.
Well, sometimes he's setting up a pond.
It's true. He did set up a pond and a biosphere.
And he's apparently lurking on the internet, stealing people's videos.
Whew. He's done them with trouble. I was talking with him this morning.
That was hilarious. That cracked me up. Yeah, if you haven't been to Aquapros, he posted a Corey video that was, air quote, stolen.
I don't know what the air quotes are. It was straight up stolen. I've actually got my attorney on him.
Oh, did you send your attorney over?
Yeah, we're sending the cease and desist right now.
Who's your attorney? What's his name?
I mean, I know my real attorney's name.
No, not.
That's what
no, from the TV show.
Better Call Saul?
Better Call Saul.
Oh, yeah. Saul Goodman?
Saul Goodman, yeah.
It's all good.
Or Fletch. I think I would go with Fletch, personally. The Chevy Chase, old school.
I'm down.
Private investigator / lawyer / slash.
So,
slash.
I saw a good question from Joel from New Zealand.
Gillett.
I know the backstory. He got some new guppies in the mail, and he's wondering if you test the water that the guppies came in, can you get any information from the source water? So like let's say I was going to ship you fish and you knew nothing of my fish room, and you're wondering like, well, what are they in 6.0 pH? Were they in 10.0? Were they hard water, not hard water? In my experience, you can sometimes guess the pH, but like if there's a ton of ammonia in there, then sometimes not. If there's a ton of CO2, then sometimes not. I find hardness to be relatively accurate, like with a calcium test, basically, which is the hardness. But one thing that I know, ordering fish in for my store, that never works. Well, I won't say never, but anything trans-shipped or from like, let's say Seagrass Farms, that kind of stuff, they take fish out of their aquarium and then they take water they've prepared to ship fish in. And so it's got higher buffer, a certain pH, so that when they get high CO2, it doesn't drop too far. And a lot of the commercial places are going to be doing that. So if you got it from like a like, I don't know what to call them, backyard breeder, a fish room, someone like let's say you bought it from me and I was just a guy with a fish room, I probably wouldn't be doing specific make water because I'm shipping 7,000 packages today.
Right.
I would just take some water out of the aquarium after fasting the fish. And so if you think it's that scenario, you can probably derive a little bit of, okay, pH is at 7.2 after they've been in the bag and all that. So it's probably a little bit higher. Maybe they're at 7.4, 7.5, and hardness was this. And well, there is some things. Sometimes I've tested water and nitrates are crazy high. You just know that they came from crazy high nitrate water because 2 days in the bag, you're not going to 200 parts per million nitrate with nothing kind of eaten. You might get ammonia and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you definitely get ammonia.
Yeah.
I would say that the biggest issue with testing the shipped water is that as soon as you open the bag, all the oxygen is immediately reacting with that water from the shipping. That's especially true in saltwater fish. As soon as you open that bag, you got to be doing something, which is almost always one of the weird things that I've never really understood, because everyone over the years have always said to drip acclimate, except almost every store that I've been at that's received a shipment of, for instance, saltwater fish, they never drip acclimate.
Yeah.
Like, because as soon as you open up that bag, it starts interacting with the environment around it, and all of a sudden the parameters on that water starts crazy shifting. Like the ammonia reacts with the air, all that kind of stuff. And, so like, one of the stores I worked at, as soon as we opened the bag, we would drop liquid prime in. Like the moment you open the bag.
Yeah, neutralize
like
stuff.
a lot of liquid prime. Like not like, well, let me get my eyedropper.
Like a cup of it.
Yeah, it was like a half cup, like boom, right in there, just immediately, because oftentimes, fish would die just from opening the bag and it just sitting there for like 5 minutes, because it's like all that ammonia is reacting, the salt, magnesium and stuff is reacting with the environment as soon as you open that bag. And like you said, prepared water, for instance, like when we were over at koi.com, like how much work they put into preparing the water before they ship a big koi.
Yeah.
So like, and that's not the water that's coming from where they're holding, so it's going to be a bad deal. But what I would highly recommend to anybody out there that is ordering fish and get them in the mail, you request from the seller, I need an evaluation of your water, basically.
Yeah.
Send me a sheet of paper that says what your water parameters are.
Or at least an email ahead of time.
Or an email ahead of time, or what's going on. And most sellers will do that. Most sellers would be like, oh, our pH is this, our blah, blah, blah is that. This is pretty typical for us. They may or may not give you a guarantee. Like, that's exactly correct, but it's going to be in the ballpark. And realistically, I wouldn't buy fish from a seller that wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that would be weird if
that
they're
like, no, I don't.
It's like buying.
Tell you what my
It's like
water
buying
is.
fast food, and you're like, "Is there mayonnaise on this?" Like, maybe.
Like, I'm
Like,
not
well,
going to tell
is
you.
there or isn't there? Maybe. Well, then I'm not buying
Yeah,
one.
it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like it's not a trade secret, It's just
Right.
kind of one of those like, okay,
Like, I just need to know so that I can,
yeah,
I'm better equipped to receiving what you're selling.
A lot of places will just post it. It'll be on the website or in the Aquabid like about me page, or because it gets asked so often. Yeah,
and I would I would consider like I said, I would consider somebody who doesn't send you their water test and like what their normal water parameters are. I just wouldn't buy anything from them. I would just be like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna walk away. It's sort of like buying a car. If somebody's like, well, I don't have any paperwork, but boy, howdy, did I do a ton of work on this. It's got a brand new transmission in it. And you're like, okay, where's the receipt? Where's the warranty? Like, that's not an assumption that the transmission will last forever. But if they're telling you, like, oh, I just put a new transmission in this 1 month ago. And you're like, oh, cool. Do you have the receipt and stuff? And they're like, nah.
Not really into
But you
those.
just got to trust me that, like, there's a new transmission in there, and I'm going to charge you for it also. That's kind of like a parallel purchasing situation that that obviously stands close to my heart right now after looking at so many vehicles. Boy, howdy. It's hurting my brain.
Well, you got one now.
I got one
Someone
now.
was asking, did you get the white one, bro?
I got the white one. I bought exactly the same truck.
Except it comes with reflective tape.
Except it's white and it has some reflective tape and
Yeah.
things like that on it. My mom was like, what is wrong with you? I'm like,
That's what I was
I don't
thinking.
know. You raised a grandpa.
That's what I was thinking.
I'm like, you raised a grandpa, so what do you want me to do?
You couldn't even go like a year or two newer or anything?
I could have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I could have done.
Could have. Speaking of which, did you ever email that Ford Transit person
Oh, that's a scam, 100%.
Did you email him though?
I did not email him because as soon as I looked up their email,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's a scam. They just want my information.
I see.
And I was like, no. And I looked up comparables also, and strangely enough, they were selling
Twice the price at least. Yeah.
a quarter of the price is how much they were selling theirs for.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I was like, that's not real.
So Salty Fresh has a question I like with a super chat. I'm currently getting into breeding clownfish. Can you guys explain what the meaning behind F1 and F2 is? Also, is sibling breeding in the fish hobby acceptable? Which part do you want to take?
I'm going to take the second part.
All right.
Because I feel like you can do better than I can at explaining F1, F2.
Sure. So F1, F2, I don't know. I was ranting somewhere about this because I remember writing this out within the last week. I was talking about it. But so the conventional naming system of generations, especially in the cichlid hobby, I think is where it's most used and prevalent. F0 would be wild caught. And so the F, as far as I know, stands for like first generation. I don't know why it goes to F2 or anything though. And F0, like I think it started with these are wild caught, this is first generation, and then they just kept with the F thing. So then they're like, this is F2, and this is now F0. I think that's how it developed long term, but somewhere out there, I'm sure there's like a wiki article that goes, well, actually, it comes from, formaldehyde 1 and 2 or something. But so if you have a wild caught fish, especially in the saltwater hobby or something like that, a lot of fish will be wild caught. That's an F0 or patient 0, whatever you want to call it. Then the fry, if you were to breed those, would become first generation from the parents. And then if you bred those babies, that would become generation number 2, so F2. Now, for a lot of people that are new to that like naming convention will assume that F0 is better than F1 and F2 is better or worse than F1. But especially with like clownfish, you might be on F15, but that's what's making your like Picasso clown. So like it's almost a better thing. Like if we're talking, let's see if Dean was sitting here and he had dark night rams, right? F10 would mean that like, wow, those babies probably come out all black all the time. Whereas like the first generation of a black ram, you might only get 20% that are actually black because it's so not set. So that's the F scheme of generational stuff, and it extends, saltwater, brackish, freshwater, all that kind of stuff. And my biggest bone to pick with the F convention is that no one... Oh, that's right. It was for an article. There was a guy writing an article, and it was recommended to me, and it was about the fish hobby, and it's for like a university paper on like... I forget, but my part I was weighing in on was that F0, F1, F2, the problem with it is anyone can claim anything and there's no one doing any checking.
Right.
So if you were to come up to me and you're like, oh, I only want wild-caught yellow lab cichlids, and I could be like, yes, I have F0s. And then the next guy comes, you're like, well, I really only want F1s because I don't believe in taking fish out of the wild. And you're like, yes, I have F1s.
Right.
Like no one's doing any DNA testing or anything like that. So it's kind of like, it's like the car example. You could be like, okay, so I'm looking for a Ferrari, but it's this year, like I want a 1972 Ferrari. And you're just like, yep, that's this. And then the next guy is asking, you're like, I'm looking for a 1995 Ferrari. And you're like, yep, that's this. Like there's no numbers that actually are checked. And so because
that's
they
a bad
all look the
analogy
same.
because there are numbers in the cars.
There is on the car.
Yeah.
But not on fish.
We'd know that you were lying about this Ferrari situation.
Not if you really didn't know Ferraris.
We just look up the VIN.
Does
the VIN match the block, bro?
We already scrubbed them
Motor.
off. Yeah.
Motor.
We already ground them right
Motor
off.
what? Oftentimes in those old collector cars, the VIN number is the most important thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, that's the collectible part.
But that's my biggest issue is that
Bro,
no one can prove otherwise.
no one can prove it. No one's genetic testing. That's the real...
And it goes around
That's the
a
caveat.
lot
That's the
in the
caveat.
cichlid hobby.
That's the caveat that I have against the shrimp. I've gone to bat way too many times against people in the shrimp, the freshwater shrimp. Oh, these are pure line King Kongs. Like, what are you talking about?
Speaking of
Are you
which,
just making up stories?
I saw locally a shrimp I had never seen before, and maybe I'm uneducated, but it was called a yellow King Kong, but it was a neocardinia. So it was just like a yellow neo.
It's just a yellow neo.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I guess maybe there's a new thing, but I'm like, King Kongs traditionally had only ever come from crystal shrimp before.
Yeah, they're Caradinas. That's it.
Yeah. So, that's in that same vein.
Well, it's the same issue that I have with like the Michelin shrimp and all that kind of craziness where they're like, well, look, I'm proving that I'm just going to call it a Michelin shrimp because this is clearly a tiger shrimp mixed with whatever, and you're like, do you know where these came from? No, I'm just saying that now. Like, cool. So you have no genetic testing. You have no idea what's going on. Are these wild caught shrimp that you just don't know what they are? And it's one of the big issues.
Yeah, that's a good comparison because the F thing, most of the reason people are using like, oh, these are F1s or F0s, it's a selling tactic, not actually to keep track. Because like,
right.
If you want to keep track, killifish people keep track of killies, like location points, like GPS coordinates, like that is done correctly in a lot of other things in the cichlid hobby, and there's some others like clowns, let's say, but it's a marketing tactic.
Right.
That's predominantly.
Predominantly, it's
like some people
it's a
would
salesman
use it.
pitch.
Yeah, some people would
it's
actually
a salesman
use
pitch.
it.
It's like, to stay with the car analogy, it's like this is an exclusive color.
Yeah.
Like you can only get this sapphire red
This year of this Ferrari.
This is the only one
Yeah.
that's sapphire red or whatever. Yeah. And so to answer is sibling breeding in the fish hobby acceptable? Yes. Yes, it actually is. I guess long story short, here's the quick and short version. Genetics between fish, shrimp, that kind of stuff, it's not the same as humans. Okay, it's different. It's wildly different. And the genetics aren't passed on in the way that they are with humans. And the easiest way to explain that would be if you have a shrimp that has a 1-year lifespan, right? You're going to get through a lot of generations in 80 years. And they would be completely handicapped by the fact that they would accidentally inbreed. Those are all gone now. Those fish, those shrimp, they don't exist at the point in the timeline of the Earth, basically. You know, like all those fish and shrimp that were inbred, unfortunately, they either got eaten, they died. Those lines die out. They don't last that long. But if you look at a human lives like 80 years. There's only one that exists that amount of time. Right?
Yeah.
I think, if we're talking about one person. So when you go to pass your genetics on, the generations are so much farther apart. And mammals is different. You know, our genetics are different. Mammals versus, you know, fish, crustaceans, all that kind of stuff. It's a different thing. So breeding brothers and sisters and stuff like that is not an issue. It's really not something that you would worry about. Just characteristics wise, that if you had a brother and sister that you didn't want these specific characteristics to combine, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
But that's more of a reselling issue, you know, quality with air quotes.
Pretty
around
much
it, you
anything you've seen that is like a color form or a variant, siblings have been bred.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at like guppies, platies, German blue rams, a lot of the peacock cichlids, like there's a lot, I would say like anything that's not a wild form is almost exclusively sibling bred to make that. There's a few exceptions. There's a very few, but you know, so when you start looking at that, you might be able, like, you might go to PetSmart and you might be like, 80% of the fish here are pretty much sibling bred to make that and that and that and that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not that many fish that we keep as hobbyists that are pure. Like, you know, you got like neon tetras and cardinals, and you've got a few things like that. But then, like, most angels have been bred to make them better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot platies, almost all the live bearers, a lot of the cichlids, and so yeah, obviously, if that's the majority, it's not that detrimental. So,
yeah.
All right. We've got a sump question, which always seems fitting for you.
Oh, man.
He's got a 200-gallon aquarium, right?
Yeah.
So all they can afford right now is a 75-gallon for a sump.
Mm-hmm.
Is that big enough?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
And optimizing it, how do you optimize it? I feel like that could be a super long conversation depending on what are you keeping? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, that could be a crazy long conversation, realistically. I have some videos up on it. I know that Corey has some videos up on it. We have some collaborative videos up on putting his sump together for his 800. That 75 is going to be fine. I would just, as far as optimization goes, like it really depends on what you're going to keep down in there. But I would, you know, maximize the space for equipment, aka heaters. If you want a small refugium area or something down there, whether it's a freshwater refugium or a saltwater refugium, doesn't matter. And I would also consider you just want to have a lot of filtration down there and a lot of space for your bacteria to colonize, whichever way you want to go with it.
I think a loose rule of thumb is like start with 3 parts. Like water comes in, something happens in the middle, water goes back into the tank. Like 3 chambers.
Yep.
I mean, you could make it to be 20 chambers if you wanted to, but 3, you might have like water comes in, and then you've got the main chamber of like, yeah, I filter stuff and heat stuff here. And then it's like, oh, that's where water gets pumped back up, so it better not suck anything up.
Yep.
And that's the most basic. And then you can, you know, that's how you end up being a saltwater guy that's like, my sump's in the basement. My sump is the basement. There's 7,000 things attached to this thing. And because it's fun, so you could definitely go down that rabbit hole if you wanted. I know there's been a person asking for a few times. I know we've covered it a lot, but they've got some hair algae, and they have said, we've heard us talk about algae being an imbalance of light and nutrients, but their main question is, how do you start finding out what the problem is? You know, so like, okay, so I know it's an imbalance, and I've got this hair algae. How do you start diagnosing it? I would say the first thing, have your light on a timer. Like make the lighting constant, and if it's not on a timer or have a built-in timer, it's not constant. I don't care if you wake up every day at the same time, go to bed at the same time every day. Eventually you have a late night. Eventually you're gone for the weekend. Like there's enough variation there that even that can cause the problems. So the first thing, light becomes a constant. That's important.
Light becomes consistent also.
Yes, consistent. It's a known parameter at this point. Like, it's 8 hours a day, or it's 10 hours a day, or whatever it is. Then you kind of start, balancing nutrients. So let's say you make a dose, and then at the end of the week, you're going, I have nothing left. Maybe that's a sign you don't have enough. Or maybe you've got way too much nutrients in there, and it's a sign like, okay, I've got a problem going on where I have excess. So you try to dial that into, in my personal opinion, in a perfect world, my planted tanks would sit at 20 parts per million, like nitrogen, with the matching other nutrients sitting there all the time. For me, I feel like that's super easy mode. Now, that doesn't really happen in aquariums, though, because plants eat, it goes down, you dose, it goes up, and so it's always kind of moving. But if you know that maybe 20 parts per million, like if you're using an easy green, if you monitor the nitrates, you can focus on that and go, what do I got to do to keep it right there? If you're dosing like a PPI method where you're or an estimative index where you're flooding the nutrients, and then at the end of the week you're water changing it out, kind of the same thing. If you're sitting at 50, you're going, I probably put too much in. And you would do, probably like a 60% water change. And then I would say, don't add nutrients for that week. That's where I think a lot of people, like with that system, they're like, well, you add nutrients every week no matter what. It's like, well, if you were really high and you 60% water change, you drop down to like 25 parts per million. If you dose again, you're just going straight back up. So you got to use a little bit of detective work of like, here's where I am today. Where do I want to see my tank in 7 days? What happens if I add things to it? What's it actually doing? Because I think a lot of people disassociate, like, plants need fertilizer, so I put fertilizer in, and that makes plants grow. And it's like, well, no. Plants need nitrogen, phosphate, micro, other macros. And so you gotta become a scientist, unfortunately, a little bit. And
that's good.
And let's say those were both in sync. Like that, sometimes that happens, which that's rare with algae, but let's say those are in sync and you're like, I don't get it. The last thing I usually...
Was that Backstreet Boys or In Sync?
What's up? Oh, yeah.
What? Oh, sorry.
The last thing I would look at then is like flow. You could just have like a really stagnant aquarium where you're like, the nutrients actually aren't getting around to the plants. Like you've got this stem plant sucking it up, and then like, geez, that Anubias down the road's like not getting anything because there's such little flow going on.
Yep.
But most people I find are kind of ridiculous on filtration anyway. Like I got 6 canister filters and 9 hang-on backs. So yeah, that's the problem solving. We should make some giant infographic. Like
a big one?
Do you have a timer? No. That's your problem.
Yeah, get a timer.
Yes. Okay. Do you have nitrates at this level? No. Go over here.
Go over here. Yeah.
Yeah, we could. That's really what you're doing.
You can do that. I've seen some charts like that, basically.
I mean, that's literally what you're doing is kind of just trying to follow down to like, what's the most likely problem?
Yeah, what's the most likely problem, and also, you want to look. Basically, one of the things that you want to look for if you're going just visually looking for something, you would want to get the appearance of what is going on with your plants. Your plants are always a great indicator of what you're either deficient in, or maybe maybe not overly.
There's a couple of them. I think if you have like a crazy amount of magnesium, it'll do something.
Yeah, they'll do some
they get like curly or something. Yeah,
but they'll get super dark. But that's also you can also that's a way to diagnose. So like your plants are going to tell you more often than not, and there actually is a pie chart out there that's pretty easy to find. You can just Google search it. But essentially, it's like if my plant is doing X, right? I'm deficient in Y, which correlates to I don't have enough Z for all 3 of these to work.
And there's the next level that that I probably don't know.
It's like Farmer's Almanac or something like that has a pie chart that will tell you like which ones react.
Yeah, and over my head is, and you probably know this, which I don't expect you to explain it, but sometimes you could have like all the calcium in the world and you're showing a calcium deficiency, but it can't possibly uptake calcium because you don't have boron, you idiot, you know,
Right.
or whatever. And it's like, that goes on a level that I don't understand. And there's people that definitely know it. But for me, I just know that you can have like, I got unlimited calcium, and yet it looks like it's got a calcium deficiency.
Right.
You're
That's why I
probably
was
missing
saying
something
that,
else.
That
yeah.
you want to look up that basic. There's a real basic pie chart. I can't tell you exactly where it is. You're going to probably have to Google search for a minute to find it. And no, I don't have a link with me. But you will find the uptake. Basically, the uptake, it's the sister, essentially. So...
it's like a symbiotic
and
thing.
I don't want to list any off the top of my head because I wasn't thinking about this before the
Yeah.
show, and I'll just get hammered in the comments if I say the wrong ones. But there's essentially a sister nutrient for each one to allow uptake to go correctly into the plant and be utilized, right? Like here's a perfect example with humans. Here's one I do know. Is that with calcium, you need vitamin A and vitamin D. Vitamin A and D don't normally show up in milk, right? That's why when you go to the grocery store, vitamin A and vitamin D are added to milk in order for you to properly uptake the calcium from milk, right? That's a perfect example. It's like if you could be drinking all that calcium, but if you don't have any A or D vitamin in order to utilize that calcium, your body won't absorb it. It'll just pass through and then you poop, you know, like regular or irregular. I don't know. You could be lactose, right?
Could.
It could be. But it's going to be the same thing for plants. Like if, you know, and also one of the things that people have consistently asked, and people are asking even today in the chat, does my low-tech tank need CO2? You know, if I don't have highlights, if I don't have this, if I don't have that. You have to remember that like CO2 is the free-floating form of carbon. Now, there's more than one type. Here comes the ghost. Great.
Yeah.
In the middle of the show, ghost. But you know, CO2 is essentially the free-floating form of carbon as opposed to the, I guess the best way to kind of explain it, the solid form of carbon, right? And that's almost always the building block to build the plant itself, which is why you'll notice now that our environment now is at 400, and I think the last reading I saw was 412 parts per million in the air, which is extremely high. But part of the Earth's response to that is that forests are growing and expanding all over the place. Like there's a ton of area up in Canada that's not supposed to have forests on it, and yet there are the trees because carbon is so much more readily available for the photosynthetic process that trees are growing where they weren't growing before. Like there might not be a great amount of nutrients in the soil or whatever. You know, it's far too long for me to just keep talking about, but that carbon is the building block that allows the plants to be able to utilize things like nitrates or nitrogen or phosphates or whatever to actually build themselves into a plant.
Speaking of,
so if you add CO2 to your aquarium, it just adding CO2 to your aquarium doesn't do anything. It just makes it easier for your plants to grow, essentially. Yeah. That would be the best way that I could kind of verbalize it. It's like, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to make your tank super dope in like 5 minutes, right?
No.
It's just going to allow your plants the opportunity, an easier opportunity to be able to grow underwater, which is typically the handicap that plants have, is that they're underwater. There's less CO2 in water. Yeah. Do we remember the parts per million in water?
I do. I think it starts at about 8 parts per million naturally. Right. And if you were like, oh man, I'm at maximum saturation that my fish can live, my plants can live, that's between 28 and 30 parts per million. But I think for most people just most people in general, I don't think they think about CO2 the correct way. I always try to think about it like air in an aquarium because it's another gas that, like if you had an aquarium that, like we had an aquarium here and it just had water in it, no filtration, nothing, there will be a level of oxygen and there will be a level of CO2 in that water naturally. Now, if we put a few fish in there, let's say it's a 55 gallon, we have 5 neon tetras, we wouldn't necessarily have to add an air stone or anything like that. Like it'll allow enough oxygen to exchange at the surface, they'll be fine. If we have 5 Oscars in there, though, at the rate at which they breathe, we will have to add oxygenation in some form to that aquarium. That's the same thing that happens in an aquarium with plants. If you have one Anubias, there's in that 55 gallon, it will never run out of CO2 essentially.
Uno Nubius?
Yeah, Uno Nubius. It'll never run out of CO2. But if you have a full-on planet tank and they're all using CO2, then it makes sense for us to start injecting CO2 so they don't run out. Just like when we had 5 Oscars, we inject air so they're not running out.
Yeah, and essentially what ends up happening is you have like a fully planted tank. It's like each plant is just like waiting in line. Mm-hmm. Like, man, where's that CO2 molecule that I need to combine with? And then they're just waiting. So it's like somebody waiting in the lunch line.
Yep.
Is like, well, you're ready to eat, but you don't have any food yet.
Yep.
You got the tray. You ain't got nothing on it. You just...
Yeah, we haven't fired up the kitchen or anything.
Essentially, your plants end up just waiting in line because they need that CO2 to complete the process. And, yeah.
And that's why CO2 only helps if people were waiting in line.
Right.
Like if you've got a full-on cafeteria and there's no one waiting in line to buy food, installing another cafeteria doesn't make it like, now we're really selling stuff. Like now you just have more stuff you're not selling. And that's the same way in aquarium. So if it needs it, CO2 is super beneficial. If it doesn't need it, that's when you get to people like, it didn't do anything. And that's for a long time. All the planet forums are like, yeah, add CO2, it's magical, then you don't have algae problems. But all the people that were participating in the Planet Tank forums were super plant nerds with a billion plants in there.
Right.
And then you get a person with like, I've got 6 moss balls and an Anubias. I added CO2, it didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. Like, well,
I've got 2 questions here I want to handle real quick.
Handle them, bro.
This first one is from Dr. Chango, which is a weird name.
Awesome name.
Opinions from both of you on K1 coldness DIY filters as cheap filtration. Now, I'm going to sound like I'm kind of being a jerk right now, but I want people to process what I'm going to say.
As a whole thing, not just
as a
bite.
whole thing, not just the first sentence.
Take the whole meal in, not just one bite. All right.
There are a lot of people out there that want to know how to DIY stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, here's the issue. Most of the people that I encounter that want to learn how to DIY stuff don't have the abilities to DIY stuff.
Okay.
Right?
So they're a Corey. I got it.
Right. Then they start DIYing stuff. Then it breaks. Then they end up having to buy the thing later down the road that they should have just bought in the first place.
Sure.
K1 filtration is fine. It's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it. If you want to go that route, I would wholeheartedly go that route. The DIY filtration question, I constantly get these all the time. And they're from people that I'm like, well, cool, you can get a bucket, you can get a hole saw, you're going to get some bulkheads, you're going to have to do this. Be sure to get some 2-part epoxy, look for this hose. Check on, make sure which kind of pump you want. You want a DC pump, you want an AC pump, figure out what you want to do. Are you going to put a UV sterilizer in there or not? Which kind of voltage is that going to run off of and whatnot? And I start talking about stuff. And then they're like, so you said get a bucket? Okay. What's a bulkhead? And I'm like, now, like I said, it sounds like I'm being a jerk. I'm really not. Because it would be like, how do I change my transmission? And then be like, oh, okay, cool. The guys that do that, they go to class for about 1.5 years to learn how to do that properly. Take the transmission apart, put all the put all the rings and all the gears and all the crazy stuff back into it. But you want me to explain it to you in 3 minutes. Yeah. And that's one of the big issues that a lot of people are running into. Is that they want to learn how to DIY, then they get a pretty short description of how to do it, assuming that you already have the basics covered with your skill set, right? But I would say this. I would say go work on your skill set, right? And then once you have that skill set handled, right, you probably wouldn't have the question about DIYing because you'd already have some ideas on how you're going to work moving forward. I love making like the instructional videos and stuff, like showing people how to do it. And that's great and everything. But to try and explain that stuff to people, it's like, go to trade school or something, you know what I mean, and become a plumber, you know what I mean? So, and by that point in time, then it's like, oh, well, I didn't really need to ask the question on like how to DIY that thing because I already know how to do it. And I love people asking the questions and having the inquiring minds of trying to get there. Like keep doing that. I fully encourage that. But it definitely doesn't mean that it's going to be simple or it's even going to be cheaper. And with filtration, the cheapest way that I've tried to teach people, and like Aaron was asking today, a 75-gallon sump. Get yourself a sump. Learn how to plumb it. Learn how to do that. That's going to be your first step. And for a lot of people, that's a huge step, right? Then from there, you might start working forward towards building your own filtration systems. A sump is a filtration system. It's my preferred filtration system. It's much less likely to fail. It operates through gravity.
I think it's
and those kinds of
documented
things.
the best too.
It's
Like
documented
you've got the
best,
most resources to be successful.
If you are looking for diagrams or used ones or stuff like that, you can definitely save a lot of money. But yesterday I was fielding, and kind of the reason I bring this up is that a lot of people were asking me about, you know, I went a million miles into the rabbit hole of building my own lights and stuff. And a lot of people are like, well, you know, Finex sells cheaper lights than the Fluval lights. And I'm like, but I'm recommending the Fluval light because it's the one that you'll be able to use that won't burn your house down. If it does burn your house down, you're going to be covered because it's been tested a million times.
Yeah, it's UL rated.
It's rated by all of the Better Business Bureau and all that stuff, right? And it's backed by a warranty, and it's this, and it's that, and it's that. And they're like, yeah, but it's expensive. I'm like, it's not the most expensive. I find it to be right in the middle to lower area, as a matter of fact. I find them to be kind of cheap for what, price-wise, for what they are. You know, it's like getting a Lexus, but paying for a Honda. Wait, Toyota makes Lexus, sorry. It's like it's like getting a Lexus, but paying for a Toyota, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of a similar situation here in the fact that I've explained to people like how much money I spent going down that rabbit hole. It was way more money than just buying the Fluval lights in the first place. And I think realistically, if you're going to build like a canister filter or a hang-on back filter, you're going to spend so much more money than buying one. You know, it's like I would recommend going to get something like Arena canister filter or you know, whatever brand that you really like that is a reputable brand, go get that and then put the filtration media that you want to put in it, and go that route because it will save you a ton of time. It will save you a ton of money. But if that's something that you guys want to learn about, then I would definitely go into learning the skill set of how to do that. Like if you wanted to build your own lights, now you have to go learn how to do electrical, which doesn't mean I build a light tomorrow. That means I spend the next 3, 4, or 5 months learning about what resistor does this, what is 110 volt, what's 220 volt, what's 10 amps, what's all that stuff that you're going to have to learn. Then once you learn all that stuff, then you can apply it to the next step. But it's like, you know, how do you build a car? Well, I'm going to start building a car tomorrow, so somebody tell me how to do it. And you're like, yeah, okay. There's a lot because you got to go harvest rubber from the forest. You know what I mean? So,
my DIY,
like I said, I don't want to come across sounding angry or upset or trying to be mean or anything like that. I'm trying to give my best advice to go start building your skill set to moving forward on that stuff, because then you'll just have the skills and then you'll be able to make a decision on the direction that you want to go, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I think overall that's probably the best advice I can give. Anyhow.
I'm only a fan of DIYing when I can't just buy the item.
Right.
Like that's when I'm like, Because like even in the K1 instance, it's like, are you building a 2-liter pop bottle? Then just buy a sponge filter. Like, you know, if you have a need for something and you can't buy that product off the shelf, it makes sense to DIY it, because then you're not going, oh, how much did that cost versus how much it's going to cost you to build? You're building something that you can't buy. I think that's when it makes sense. But for a lot of people, like, so in my DIY bucket filter video, there's probably 30 comments on there of people just going, well, you just build me one and then charge me and send it. And they're missing the whole point of, if you were going to do that, just buy a canister filter. And I broke it down. At the beginning, I was breaking it down for people. I'm like, well, there's 2 bulkheads. There's like 15 things of bio balls in here. There's the pump that you're going to need to run it, which is a $50 pump. And then you've got the bucket. And I've got to put this together. It's going to take me 40 minutes. And then we have to ship a bucket across the country. Like, that's going to be more expensive than just buying a Fluval 406 or something. And then you get something that, if it burns your house down, you're still covered. You can buy replacement parts. You get an instruction manual and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to something I've just done. And so, yeah, I learned, I was definitely the guy that was like, I'm going to DIY stuff. And then I learned through just doing a lot of the stuff that it costs more. I remember giving up on a 3D background because I was like $160 into it, you know, and I wasn't done. That's the thing, is like, I still needed to buy color for the epoxy I was going to put over the cement and all this stuff. And I had tons of days of work. I remember scrapping it going, oh, some projects are not worth doing. Like, you can do it, but it didn't save money. And I guess that's the big thing. DIY because you want to build something yourself, not because you want to save money.
Right.
For me, that is.
Right. And, you know, also the thing is that, like, DIY is great and everything. You know, and all right, let me put a quick caveat on here. I'm going to continue talking about DIY, and I'm going to not talk about fish DIY, mainly just because most people are going to relate that to a dingleberry that I don't really want to talk about right now. So let me go over to house building DIY and talk about that for a minute.
Sure.
So Chip and Joanna Gaines have a great show called Fixer Upper, right? Is that right?
I watched that when I was
popular
sitting
show.
at the doctor waiting to get seen.
Hugely popular show, very entertaining, right? There is no, like, here's how you do this in it, right? And a parallel show to that would be like This Old House. Now they do feature products and stuff like that on This Old House. They do show you sometimes how to do things like, well, here you got to miter this butt so it goes in here properly, and you got to do this and da-da-da-da, and it's got to be 24-inch instead of 12 or this or that or the other thing, right? But the difference in those shows is that This Old House, it takes 9 months for all of the episodes to come out as they go step by step through the process, right? Now, Fixer Upper, it takes 1/2 of an hour for the whole show to be done. I'd like to say that it was 22 minutes. It's like probably 22 minutes because it's an hour.
Commercials,
it's an hour-long show minus commercials and minus where they follow them around, like where they go shopping and then they're milking a cow and they're like doing stuff that isn't that. So I would think of it in terms like that when you come into the fish keeping hobby. Like, even when you watch like one of my DIY videos, it's like, this thing's only 8 minutes long or something. I'm not giving you all of the information you need to know, right? Like, how many people got super upset when they were like, oh man, Joel's using purple. He's using purple primer on his plumbing. That's a disaster. That's a huge mess. And it's like, yeah, well, I don't pour it all over the place. I don't know what you're talking about. I use purple because it's at the store and it's primer. I don't care as long as I'm using the right glue, right? But like This Old House, it takes a really long time for them to do one house because that's how long it takes. But then the perception is people will watch like an 8-minute long like DIY fish tank build or something, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna be done with this in no time. I'm just going to do what that guy did. Mm-hmm. And yet that guy's coming to the plate with a ton of information, like George Farmer, right? Like a guy sets up a tank. It's like time lapse or whatever. But he's got all of the tools in his toolbox up here that you don't see, all the stuff that he's working out. So that's something that I would definitely remind people is that like it will take time to learn where you're going with the DIY and stuff, and you're really not going to save money learning. You're going to be spending money like you're going to school because that's basically what you're doing.
Here's a good example. Most people that are really good at a craft buy it. So like when you know that guy that's like, oh, he's a wicked good woodworker. Wait, he just bought a bed frame? And it's like, well, yeah, to do it the way he's going to do it, it's like, oh, that's 7 days to build a bed frame. It'll be the best bed frame you've ever seen, but it costs twice as much. And they got a stack of them sitting over there for $75. Why wouldn't we just buy one of those out of metal instead of the woodworker? And that's one of those reasons is it just takes a lot of work. Like building tanks, like why wouldn't you just build it? It costs the same. It's like, yeah, except it takes 3 weeks of my life and a bunch of space at the same time. Like that's not the same. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Oddball Aquaponics is asking, how would you filter a very shallow, like 6 inches of water planted swamp-like aquarium? I have old videos on shallow planted aquariums that you could go look up. You could check that out. I filtered it with a sump.
So I've been waiting for this moment.
But
the fish nerd was in the chat, and I just want to know, why has it been 2 months since you've uploaded a video, bro? I was looking at it last night. I was like, so no joke, fish nerd. I was going to put you on my giveaway contest, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to show this guy some love. And then I was like, wait, he hasn't put out a video in 2 months? What's going on with this guy?
2 months.
Because I see him in the chat, so now I got to harass him and be like, hey, man, what are you doing? So next time, shoot me an email or something. Let me know what's up if you need any help.
Right.
By the way, I do have a contest. Go to aquariumcoop.com/promotion, and we're giving away 3 $100 gift cards. You could mail in an entry. You could sign up for the newsletter. You could like this channel. You can do all these little things to get little entries. And I think, and don't hold me to this because I don't want to be held to it, but I think I'm going to do it like every month, like just as a running thing. And there's a really cool channel on there that I highlighted instead of the fish nerd, unfortunately. But Mark Shelley Aquatics, he's a guy that had less than 500 subscribers, and I found myself watching his videos, and I was like, yeah, I should share this guy. So you can learn a new channel too.
Right.
What's that other question?
It's also the one quick thing I wanted to bring up, and you and I have talked about this on numerous occasions. It's nothing new, but could I build that light over there?
I couldn't. You might be able to.
I could. Could I build that light in $185? That one's $185, right?
Mm-hmm.
$185 worth of time and materials, and combine the two.
I know for sure if you factor in the time, no. Materials, maybe.
I'd have to build that thing in like 45 minutes.
The materials, I've looked it up. We were going to do a DIY light video, and it got expensive quick buying like the aluminum heat sink and that kind of thing. And we abandoned it because that was like a year ago, and we were way poorer than we are now.
Yeah, way over.
Not that we're not poor now, but our budget was nothing.
It's not that we're poor, or anybody's poor or anything. Is that you're way over budget?
Yeah.
Is that you're like, wait, this is gonna cost like $400 to build this thing, and a bunch of time.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
And it doesn't really help anyone either, because they're like, that's a $400 thing, man.
Right? Yeah. You're like, this isn't helping anybody, And I like I said, I tried to find every variable of like DIY light situation, but that's why I keep going back to that, because yesterday I was talking about this too. Is that like, there's no way I'm going to be able to build that thing in $185 with time and parts, right? It's just a fact. And a lot of people have talked to me. They're like, it's $185. That's a lot of money. And I'm like, yeah, sort of, but not really. Like, if you have a job, if you're working, like,
money is always in relation to the enjoyment.
Right.
So, like me, if I only ever had one aquarium.
But here's the same thing. Like, I'm not the best photographer in the world, right?
You're not?
I'm not.
Oh.
100% not. But my photographer friend, I was asking her about the 100 millimeter lens that I want, right? and I've been trying to save for it for a long time. It's like $725 right now or something like that. So I think it's like $725. And I was asking and and I'm like, yeah, well, and we're kind of going back and forth, and she was like, what are you talking about? $725? Like, one of my lenses is $4,000 in my bag right now. And I'm like, got it. Now it's starting to make sense to me. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not at the point where, $725 is kind of nothing, because I'm not far enough along in like my photography that I'm like, oh, that's just a thing that I want to do.
Right.
So
it's that money
it's
to
one of those
enjoyment
things
ratio.
that like, maybe this $185 light is too much. So maybe you should only be doing a 20-gallon aquarium that, for instance, that Fluval light is only like $54 or something. And then you're like, oh, $54. Because to me, I'm looking at the super old version that's $250, and I'm like, man, maybe I should just get that because that's not that big of a deal, right? So I think that's kind of the parallel. But the DIY stuff, you're not going to save money.
Yeah.
It's like going to school. You're going to pay money to go to school. So it's a thing. But the other question that I wanted to answer was Mayhem's Tank 522. Interesting name. Maybe he lives off of
Mayhem.
522 Highway, right?
Could be. Seems unlikely, but maybe.
Was asking, how would you treat a green water algae bloom? How would you treat that?
I would get a UV sterilizer because I'm lazy AF.
You're lazy autofocus?
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's just because I have one around, and if I didn't, I recommend having one around for myself. So I would just grab it as a unit and move it to the aquarium and be like, sweet, I cured my green water. Because that's just a tool that I like to have in my toolbox.
I don't do it that way.
I know you don't.
Because I'm not lazy autofocus like you are.
Yeah.
What I would do, I'd recommend, I don't like to use UV sterilizers myself personally. I feel like they're a deterrent for me being able to gather some information about my aquariums and about what's going on with the ecosystem. I feel like utilizing a UV sterilizer is like, wow, look how clear the water is, and it's like it could be totally out of whack, and not know it because the UV sterilizer is working and it's like clearing up a bacterial bloom that I don't know is happening, and then I'm gonna have to deal with like 3 steps down the line. Yeah. Right. But what I would do with the green water bloom is make sure your light's on a timer, as we talked about before. And then you want to be doing like about between a 5 to 10% water change daily for about a week to a week and a half, and you will slowly work your way out of it. If you do a gigantic water change, it will come back in 2 days worse than it was before. So you want to just do these small water changes and just be patient, and you'll work your way through it. Don't do a blackout. I definitely do not recommend doing a blackout on your tank. It's not a great idea. It's just not. You just end up going back to the same problem that you had before. But that's definitely what I would do. That's what I do, and I've done it quite a few times and worked my way through it, and it was way, way, way more beneficial for me than the UV sterilizer personally.
I want to chime in on a couple of comments here. First, the fish nerd got a promotion at his job, so he's been busy. Became a youth pastor, and then
Carlos going next level.
Yeah, so he's upgrading in life, serious, and he said he doesn't have time for editing. So here's what I'm going to tell you, Carlos. Just go raw, man. Just like one video a week. Here's me. I got a cell phone. Just want to let you guys know I'm still alive. My tank over there almost exploded. That one's covered in algae. I'll come back around sometime, guys. Like, you build up a fan base. You got to let them know you're still alive.
Right.
We know algae happens. We know promotions happen. We're happy for you.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And then the other thing I want to chime in on is people were saying, you got to DIY stands. That's where you save the money. And I would say, no. Most times I can get a stand for free. Stands, like if you just watch Craigslist, are always like, you come and get this thing, you can have it. Now, You're going to go, but didn't you just build all this stuff? Didn't you DIY it? Yes, because I wanted it to be better, or it was building something money can't buy. But if you have any normal size tank, like at least I know I do, my store does, other stores, there's always a pile of like stands that are acceptable that are laying around. They might not be in absolute perfect condition, but if you're going for the straight up, oh, I just want to save money, stands are very cheap because they typically are just like, oh, you know, my tank broke and then I had a stand laying around.
The last tank I bought, I didn't even take the guy's stand.
Yeah, most times
He literally has that stand.
they
at
usually
his house
force
still.
me. They're like, no, stand goes with it. I'm
You
like, I don't
gotta
even want
take
it. I don't even
You
want the
gotta take it.
stand.
And I was
Yeah.
like, because dude was like, oh wait, you don't want the stand? I was like, no. And
Yeah.
He was like, oh cool, I'll sell that. And I'm like, good luck with that. Taking the tank. See you later.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that DIY, you could never save money. But if you're purely looking at I'm going to save some money, if it's not the craziest size aquarium ever, there's probably one for $20 on Craigslist, if not free. If not, I've literally seen, I will pay you $5 or I will give you some of this fish I'm breeding to take this crap out of my life. Okay, here's a perfect example. Jimmy, can you make that that Craigslist listing we were looking at earlier pop up on the screen? Remember all those tanks and everything that I was like, oh yeah, man, we're crazy. Like, let me show you this. It's free locally. Like, just so much that, like, I just want to prove a point here so that everyone's on the same page. Fish Nerd said challenge accepted. I like to hear that.
That's not good.
Your last video is 38th out of the last 49.
Oh.
I'll tell you this. My last live stream I did on the main channel, 48th out of the last 50 videos.
Oh.
I looked it up only because it was like Catfish was going like, people love this. And I was like, no. Statistically, people hate my live stream. The people that are in the live stream love the live stream.
Right.
You know, but it might be like you've got 30 people that show up to eat your spaghetti. Those people love your spaghetti. But guess what? Only 30 people are eating your spaghetti out of how many people in the world. All right, so here it is. This thing was in our local group today, this morning, whatever. So the backstory, without having to read this, is...
I don't want that, but I want that.
I said the same thing to Jimmy. Like, I don't have anywhere to put this, but I need this because it's free. So first of all, it's free. It's near Tacoma, by the way, for you.
What?
There's over 50 aquariums, and they're basically 40 breeders on end. They've all been made out of 1/4-inch glass, and it's all on steel stands. They got everything for free 4 years ago.
Whoa.
It's been sitting outside their building for 4 years, and now it's free for anyone again. Like, this kind of stuff happens all of the time. It becomes a, no. The onus, like the payment is you have to come get all of it.
Right. You got to come
and
get
so
all
even
this
these
glass.
because even I was like, oh man, those welded steel stands are awesome, and all the stands have 1-inch thick plywood on it and everything. So it's like it's awesome. I was like, I've got nowhere to put this, but this kind of stuff happens all the time on Craigslist, and so that's just my point of like,
Why didn't you forward that to me? What's the deal? You're gonna put it on Real Fish Talk, and now I have to deal with all these competitors.
Yeah. I thought you were
competitors.
busy. You were busy getting your truck, and I didn't want to just like bog you down.
I got a truck again. I can tow it.
Yeah,
Get to
well,
my
they said they
trailer
had to
again.
get in the thing. They said they had to get okay, let me back it up. They were able to find a truck big enough in Tacoma because I think those stands are like 30 feet long, solid welded steel. Like it's not like here's a 4-foot section. It's like a really long.
Oh, I would have just
one
gone down
piece.
there and torched it apart and taken all the parts.
Well, some people have DIY skills. I don't have torch
Some people
skills.
know how to weld, like me.
Not me though. But yeah, so that's if I was saving money on stands, I'm going to Craigslist to get me some stands. So, do we do gaming? We do. Well, we used to do gaming. I still do a
board
little bit of
gaming,
gaming.
right? Board gaming?
I do. In fact, Saturday night is board game night, Jimmy. I'm excited. My favorite board game.
Saturday used to be board game night, right?
It's once a month. Yeah.
Once a month. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
My favorite current board game is Cthulhu Wars. It's a stupid expensive game. We all pitched in,
I never
and it's
played that.
awesome.
Is it fun?
It's super
Are you
fun
sure?
and awesome.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
saying it's the one that you like the most. Is it fun though?
I have a lot of fun. I don't think Jimmy does because he gets owned so hard, but it's really fun. And by the way, super side plug, Peck Tech now has a channel dedicated to board games that I happen to subscribe to and watch. I'm just saying that, like, if you just nerded out a little bit with me saying Cthulhu Wars, you would like Pectec's gaming channel.
Pectec was sending me some weird pictures the other day.
Oh, yeah? All right.
Sir.
Calling you out right here. Sir, your pictures
Sir.
are weird.
Excuse
and that's
me.
coming from a guy that's super weird.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Sir.
So, I think we might be doing tacos after
I keep
this.
seeing these cookies over here.
Yeah. It's from 10 years ago.
They're gluten-free. There's no way it's from 10 years ago.
To be fair, look at the expiration date, 2017, bro.
You're holding it upside down,
Well,
sir. Don't you
I mean,
know anything about
I
this?
thought you'd know that an L looks like a 7.
Use or freeze by, but how long have these been frozen for?
I don't know, none time.
None? Zeros?
None time.
I would guarantee this is still good.
My wife's in the chat right now. That's super cool. She's at work right now, and she works at the Aquarium Co-op. And
Dorkula, I'm going to eat your Girl Scout cookies.
This is just proof for my wife. I also work. I enjoy this work, but I'm working right now just like you're working right now.
We are working right now. Yep. You should tell that to my wife, too. I do.
If she was on the show, you can do this. Like, love you, babe.
sorry.
Glad that you're at the shop,
Sorry,
so I can be
future
doing
wife.
this right
Future
now.
wife.
Yeah.
We haven't got married yet. Yes.
Because she's holding down the fort with the other employees at the store. That's the reason I can be here right now.
She's
so
karate chopping everybody
if you're going to thank anyone, thank Dorkula. And then, by the way, I didn't name her Dorkula. She named herself. So stop bringing the hate with, like, I'm abusing my wife by calling her Dorkula.
Yeah,
that's self-appointed
that's her
awesomeness.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an awesome. We had a fish named Dorkula, and then she liked that name. So please, I'm not
The real
not a bad
Dorkula.
person. The real Dorkula. That's her Instagram, right?
Yeah.
If you want all the dog pictures in the world and food pictures, the real Dorkula Instagram. That's
The
where
real
it's at.
Dorkula. I find it to be entertaining.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't follow that many people on Instagram, and you would say like, well, you have to follow your wife. No.
You don't have to.
I'm a guy that'd be like, no. I mean, on Facebook, I think I unfollowed my wife. That's not true, but I could unfollow her and I wouldn't be missing much. She shares all kind of like, we're gonna go to this estate sale. Boring.
Boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I hope she's having a good lunch break or whatever she's doing, or maybe she's just in the store chilling. I don't know.
Maybe
But-
she's just down there taking a nap.
Could be. I mean,
She
there's not
napping on
really
the
any
job.
nap places at the store though. So
Did the ghost just try to come in
yeah,
again?
there's something going down over
The
there.
ghost,
Yeah.
bro.
So
I hope it's a friendly ghost.
me too. I hope so. What is seriously going on over there?
It's a ghost.
All right, let's find some more good questions.
Phantasmas.
Can you avoid changing water by using a lot of plants? No. Eventually, you'll become deficient in something,
What happened?
whether it's pH.
What did you say?
Can you avoid water changes by using lots of plants? You can help reduce, but you can't replace.
In a way, you can.
That's not true. I fought with someone in my own group about this. Technically, it's possible. You're not going to do it. That's really what needs to be said is like,
Well, if you read Wallstad's book, it's like, yeah. You know, by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, yeah. But
Yeah.
why?
exactly.
You
It's
know?
a thing that's
It's
like,
a but
okay,
why
yes,
thing.
it could be done.
It's like that guy who has the the big
The 30-year one.
the big one
that's been
that's
going
he's
for like
had
30
for like
years.
30
Yeah.
years. It's like, yeah, he's like, this thing was like a dumpster fire
For 11 years
for
straight, and
a
then it was
long
awesome
period-
for
long periods of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nasty. It's disgusting. So we're trying to build and maintain an ecosystem, a small one, a biotope, whatever you want to call it,
a slice of life,
a slice of
nature.
nature, right? And we want to maintain that slice
I just want to
of nature.
minimize the maintenance I got to do.
You know, algae's not bad. Algae is good.
I got tons of it. Trust
Algae is
me.
good for the
Yeah.
ecosystem. It's bad for the aesthetics of the tank. You have to remember that. Every algae that's going on is essentially, and killing it off isn't a detriment, but every algae that is growing in the aquarium is a benefit to the ecosystem itself, because that's what's compensating for what we're not doing. Or not providing, or not coming,
or
through.
don't have the capability. Like maybe we
Or
don't
don't-
have
yeah, or
we don't have a
just don't.
boron test. So it's
Right.
like, well,
Like, I'm not sure what's going on here.
that's why I did a water change. So the video that came out today was about the 230 gallon in the living room, and I hadn't done a water change in 6 months. I did a water change because it's been 6 months, not because anything looked like terrible, but I was like, yeah, but is it 9 months? Is it a year and a half? At what point is there like, oh, that thing I can't measure for built up? And so it's like I did a 30% water change at 6 months, and mostly because I was sick and I couldn't do a whole lot. So I was like, I can sit in a chair and watch water move. Like, so that's why I did it, really.
Like John Hopkins is asking, if you don't do water changes, only top off, but your parameters stay solid, I still have to do water changes? Not necessarily. I would for the benefit long term. If you're just using like tap water,
Yeah.
if you're topping off with roadie and everything is staying the same, then something is going to fall out of whack, right?
Eventually.
Because, and by that I don't mean, I mean in a planted tank, okay, or I guess in a fish only tank or a planted tank. Eventually something is going to fall off because you're going to either end up with more fish or more plants, right? So something is going to
even just the
eventually get
acids
there.
of you feed one little fish, it eats it, poops it out. Converting it from ammonia to nitrate creates a tiny bit of acid. You do that enough, you can get super acidic water. But like, I think the extremes people do, like, we tend to go like, I never want to do a water change ever. And then there's these people that do a water change every week. And I'm just trying to help educate people of like, you could be lazy like Corey and build a system where it's like, oh, no, water changing once every 6 months, pretty awesome. What's up?
Look at this nincompoop. I was going to say something way meaner.
I don't know which one we're looking
Paradoxal Fish Guy says,
Oh.
I never have anything of value to add. Thanks, guy.
at. Oh.
See you later.
Here, let's do this move. Just
But-
ban the guy. It's real easy.
Yeah, you just ban him. Is it?
Like and this
Whatever.
is the way I run my life. If you're around me and you're not being a positive impact on the way my life is going,
Yeah.
I will remove you from my life. That doesn't mean that
Have a conversation
like,
with me.
I
Have
might
a conversation
leave
with
you.
me. Just being rude to my face, I just put you into the category of like, okay, you're just one of those people. You can't ask a question. You can't have a conversation. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, people have like, people have gotten on me because last week they thought I was being mean to Dean, which the weird thing is like when I talked to Dean, he's like, no, that wasn't his impression at all. He's
They
like,
also only saw 2 hours out of like a
Right.
6-hour hangout.
yeah.
But,
and so,
yeah.
That's one thing. And then on the other hand, it's like, yeah, I've been going through a lot of stress this last couple weeks and stuff. I've had a lot of chaos going on. And my face just happens to look like this. So if I am sitting here and like,
That's unfortunate.
there's not much I can do about it, Like I got the weird Cro-Magnon brow from my dad, and I got the big
I do
ol'
think the
eyebrows to
resting
go
fish
with it.
face is genius.
The resting fish face is what I got going on.
Yeah.
But, just relax. It's all good. But I wanted to answer the question. Can you scroll up a little bit? Where did it go? Yeah, the water change parameters, and then scroll back down. Oh, it was somebody, Stacy Fetzer was asking, aquaponics? Bear in mind that aquaponics systems and hydroponic systems are regularly way out of balance. And it's not, they are being managed on a regular basis. I can tell you from experience, some of the experience I can't tell you about, but from my regular experience, you have to work with an aquaponic system and a hydroponic system on a regular basis. An aquaponic system is going to be a little bit easier because it's going to be more reliant on the fish waste, the excess food waste and things that you got going on within an aquaponic system. A hydroponic system is something that needs to be watched and monitored on a regular basis. It's not something that you just set up the hydroponics and just walk away and go do your thing. You have to keep an eye on it all the time. It gets crazy temperature swings. It gets crazy low on CO2. You have to buy really, really, really expensive fertilizers that most people would freak out if you realized how much those fertilizers are. I'm talking about one of those 5-gallon jugs with the handle on it. That's $4,000.
I need to be making that.
Yeah.
Stop making
much.
Easy Green, apparently.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things. Like an aquaponics system is more relaxed, but you do want to have some kind of monitoring on it. If you're talking about like an Apex system, Apexes are pretty expensive, but nowadays they sell pretty reasonably priced monitoring systems for ponds. I think the last one that I looked up was like $199.99, which was it would track your ammonia, your pH. And,
Was it that Senyi system or whatever?
Senai?
Yeah. They're touring with Coral 12G and Fritz all of the UK.
Cool.
I saw on Spacebooks.
That's dope. I'm sad he got rid of his mustache. But it would monitor your temperature, your pH, and ammonia. It would monitor for those three things. So it really keep track. Those are the main things on an aquaponics system, not a hydroponic system, but on an aquaponic system. If you're watching those three regularly feeding and have something that would auto top off, that would really be, that system would be set up for success, basically. That you wouldn't, you don't have to be out there every day shaking bottles and shaking vials and doing all that kind of stuff to find out what's going on. So it's pretty reasonable now with aquaponics, but it does need to be watched. It's not something that you can just leave it alone and hope it's going to work out for the best. It just unfortunately isn't. It's just the same route that I can't leave my garden alone for a month and then just be like, well, there's produce here now, right? You're like, oh, some aphids moved in, and nope, somebody could have sprayed this down 3 weeks ago and it would have been fine, but it's the same kind of thing with that. So
all right, I got a couple things. Someone asked about the ocean aquarium in San Francisco not doing water changes. I have talked about that a little bit at length, at least in the comment section. I can't say that he never does water changes because technically as a store, when you're selling fish, you top the tank back off with water. So depending at the rate you sell fish, those are getting water changes, but that is still a stark difference than my store that is like a 20% water change every single day. So it's a different way, and it was super cool to see. The other thing I want to bring up, do us a favor. If you enjoy, like let's say you've been watching this episode for an hour and 40 minutes at this point. Mm-hmm. If you have enjoyed it this much, think of somewhere to strategically share this episode. Maybe it's Reddit, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's your super awesome Tumblr blog or something like that. Like that's one of the biggest ways for us to grow. And then do a favor and like don't just be like share done. Be like, man, it was super cool when they banned that guy, or bring actually bring up something about it instead of just like a careless share. Do somewhere it's like, oh sweet. And even if only like 10 of you guys do that, that is a huge signal to YouTube. Like, wait, but 10 people shared that. Normally they don't get the 10 shares and that kind of stuff. And if it brings in 6 new people, they value that. And so I'm going to follow that up with, as someone asked for earlier, the like spike.
Oh,
we're going to count it down from 17.
I have to admit, like I almost get depressed about the like spike.
We're counting it down from 17
I get excited
today.
for shares, but I don't get excited for the
17,
like spike.
16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11,
11?
10,
10.
9,
Niner?
8.
Is that a niner?
7. Get ready. 6. It's coming. 5. Hold on. 4.
Okay.
Almost there. 3.
You can't so slow.
2. 1. Windmill slam the like button.
Oh my god.
That's how it's done.
It was unexpected.
Next week we're going for 226 seconds.
That was unexpected.
Count it down from 226.
It was unexpected. I cried a little bit.
That's how it's done, gentlemen.
Is that how it's done?
I don't know.
Did anybody even hit the like button? Probably not.
That I cannot confirm or deny that at this point. So
I get excited about sharing, but I don't get excited about the like spike.
that's because you don't like think of new things to do with it. I'm gonna get some crazy thing like
I'm not saying
a
I don't
cardboard
like
cutout
what
of
you're
the
doing.
Rock
I'm not saying I don't like
that has
what you're
an LED
doing.
hand that counts it down.
Oh. I was just saying I don't like. It's like I'm not saying I don't like what you're doing.
Joe KZX said, I would share if you acknowledged any of the remedial questions from new hobbyists. Well, there's 10,000 messages, and you just wasted your time there criticizing it instead of asking a remedial question that we could answer.
Tripled.
That's good.
Yeah, it worked the wrong way, bro. You broke it.
It probably only went from 1 to 3. I don't know how many dislikes we have, but either way, I'm good. I'm going to tell you right now. Did you read this? I tried to keep it from you.
At 4:45.
Oh, okay.
It's coming up.
Okay.
Oh, get ready. You can do it now.
No. 3 more minutes of entertainment.
I was just like, yeah, we normally do the word of the day at 4:45.
When's Dean coming back so I can hear the rest of the story about pedaling his
Low
bike?
life farted. What? I'm sorry. That's
He's
funny.
good. He's good.
I think farts is funny. Okay.
Dean may come back. He asked me, he saw that I was doing the old school show on the Sunday stream, and he said, I can make Sundays more often than Tuesdays because I don't have to work on Sundays. And I said, whenever you want to come on over, buddy, let me know. And he said, well, I'll let you know. So that's the latest info on when can I hear more Dean stories. Maybe then. We may have a special guest next week. I haven't confirmed it, so I don't know. And there's a very important question that I can't ignore. Have I ever played EverQuest? Yes. Multiple characters over years played.
Yeah.
I funded my entire livelihood from the age of 14 to 21 through selling stuff on eBay from EverQuest. So, yes. And you said you had an important question. You better follow it up and make it technical because I could. There's not too much in EverQuest.
There's no paladins in EverQuest.
Nope.
Then get out of here. If there's not a witch hunter.
There is paladins, actually. They have lay on hands.
Ooh.
They just sucked, though.
Oh. Do they
For
have
a
witch
long
hunters?
time. No witch hunters.
No witch hunters
No.
with immunity to magic?
No.
No?
No.
I would always play as an ogre witch hunter whenever I could.
That would be like an ogre shaman, pretty much.
Yeah, but a shaman can use magic.
Witch hunters can't use magic? I don't even know what a witch hunter
They can't
is.
use
That's how
magic.
ghetto I am.
They can't use magic, and they're unaffected by magic. Yeah.
The more you know, apparently.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Where did we get the when are we gonna get that star thing to go flying by when we do the more?
Oh, Jimmy,
you
can we do gifts like
know?
that? Is that a possibility? Can you make that happen in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
I bet you we could
3
have
weeks?
that. That probably could be a thing.
Somebody's got to have that.
Yeah, we could probably make that happen. That's what we need from Jimmy. That's Jimmy's contribution.
Uh-oh.
So
John Hopkins throwing out the Leroy Jenkins.
Leroy Jenkins. I only hear that in Hearthstone these days.
Who did? I was watching a show the other day where they did the Leroy Jenkins. What was that?
Memes.
There's a movie.
What movie did it?
I forgot what.
I do remember it was in a movie. I
It
just
was in
can't
a
remember.
movie I saw just a little while ago. It wasn't Avengers, was it?
I don't know. I didn't see it.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Pre-nerf, COD, and EverQuest. That's good times. You get those and some Plane of Mischief flowers. You put it on any character, you're pretty much a certified badass. Just going to say that right now. That just... Any EverQuest nerd just realized, what's up? That guy actually played some serious EverQuest. He knew the acronyms, and he knew what was going down. Yeah.
I don't.
FBSS.
I'm not that good. I never got into
Just like in Swamp.
EverQuest.
Flowing Black Silk Sash and the Short Sword of Waikisha. That's right. I still remember the acronyms.
Are you winning?
Camped FBSS so long. So many nights falling asleep at 4 o'clock in the morning camping that stupid thing.
Did you get it?
Yeah, but you ended up selling them off because they were 12 or more thousand gold, and then that was worth it. But yes, it was... Because you'd still have to... You build some good friendships because you'd still have to roll on it. So back then, it wasn't like World of Warcraft where oh, the item dropped, and now everyone gets a chance to roll on it. Someone would just grab that thing, and then you'd have to trust them that they weren't just going to steal it, which did happen from time to time. They get blacklisted on the server.
Right.
But then you'd have to roll on it, and you'd be like, sweet, I just spent 14 hours of my life and totally lost. And then so most people would be like, guess I'm going to bed. But no, there's no more or less chance that 29 minutes from now, which I think was the spawn time that it didn't spawn again. So you may as well
Right.
just keep trucking forever.
Forever.
Until you literally fall asleep, and then they just kick you from the group. And then you, like, apologize, and they're like, nah, it's cool, man. You played 15 hours straight. That's cool. Like, we didn't have to replace you until that point. It's good. So, let's do the word of the day.
So they would boot you if you didn't play longer than the 15 hours?
No, like, if you just straight up fell asleep, after, like, 20 minutes, like, they'll give you some time, because I might be like, I might have to go to the bathroom, maybe just, like, nod it off. But after, like, a certain amount, they're like, all right, we got to start looking for a replacement. But at, like, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's not like there's an infinite line of, like, healers or tanks or,
Right.
you know, so they'd be like, well, we better start looking. And then, because half the time, you'd wake up, like, 40 minutes later, you're like, oh, man, I could play, like, 4 hours now. I had an awesome cat nap.
Yeah.
You know? And that would happen. Like, the guy would, like, the person would wake up, like, an hour and a half later, and they'd be like, oh, guys, I fell asleep. And they're like, oh, sweet. This guy wanted to go to bed anyway. You're back in, bro. So, yeah.
The reason I like the witch hunter is that they're immune to magic, right?
We're getting a delivery.
And doorbells. They're immune to
Yeah.
doorbells. But you could tank with them with an ogre. And
That
then
sounds
any
awesome.
magical attack that was coming at the party, the witch hunter would be in the front. And it's like, but here's the funny part: like you couldn't heal them either.
Oh, because they can't be affected by magic
They
at
can't be
all.
affected by magic. Yeah.
Huh.
So you'd actually have to you'd basically have to use like a. This is ridiculous, but our conversation went rogue here.
It did.
But you'd have to use a potion on him,
Yeah.
right?
Could
But
other people use potions on them, or just...
in some instances you could, but it was one of those things. It's like I'll just be standing at the front hitting everything with this giant thing I got. You know,
No, that's
'Cause, like,
fun.
my first main witch hunter character. You basically like couldn't do anything with him until you got to like level 49, basically, because it was like you can't take him anywhere.
Yeah,
You can't leave him alone
until you're super high end.
Like you can't leave him
Yeah.
alone, like because if you died, like there's no resurrecting because like you'd have to respawn all the way back and resurrect back there, and then try to run to your. So basically, my character would be buck naked, try to run to my pile.
So even when you're dead, like a cleric couldn't cast resurrect because you're immune to magic. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was crazy. But
That sounds
here's
horrible.
the good thing is that like you're immune to so many things that like if you did die, you could resurrect, but then you had to run back to your pile before basically all your stuff got stolen.
Yeah.
But because you were so immune to everything and stuff, like you could just run past like so many things. Nothing could trap you.
Yeah,
Nothing
yeah.
could grab you. Like you just like set your character basically like I need to go all the way over there and just keep running until you got back to your pile and then like re-equip real quick. Which is funny. But
It's good times. All right, this one, I'm going to read the definition. I'm not doing the syllable thing
what's that?
for this word.
Okay.
It's the word of the day.
Banana Republic.
That's 2 words.
Gil.
All right, you ready? This is a noun,
Word of the day.
which seems weird to me already, but a newly married man who has long been a bachelor. I'll read it in a sentence. There were several blanks at our most recent high school reunion, but I was most surprised by Denny, who had vowed he'd never marry. A newly married man who has long been a bachelor. I have heard this word before, but only as a food item. Oh, people got jokes. Lonely, huh? That's. I don't think. Oh, a stag. I mean, that's in the right thinking. This one might be a real stumper. Mostly.
Soon to be Joel.
Well, that's. I was gonna do it in a sentence
Yeah.
of like, yeah, because whoa, oh, I could have given it away there.
Nah, you gave it away.
Because it's not a detrimental word.
Michael Moncourt. It's a baguette.
Nice.
Eggs Benedict.
I will say that
I'm trying to think.
Nick
it's
is
something like croquette or something like that.
I would say Nick is the closest. He's pretty much right.
Oh, Benedict Arnold? No, that's not right.
Scrambled eggs. No, not sandwich either.
Sandwich.
I'm gonna end the madness because Nick is either very clever, or he was just naming random fish foods, or not fish foods, but breakfast foods, and got really lucky. So, the correct word is Benedict.
Right. It's just, that's
Yeah,
That's what Nick said.
Eggs Benedict. Yeah. So there were several Benedicts at our recent high school reunion, but I was most surprised by Denny, who had vowed to never marry. Did you know Benedict is different?
Demonetized. Get
Is
out of
the
here.
chief male character in Shakespeare's play Much Ado About Nothing.
Right.
Throughout the play, both Benedict and his female counterpart, Beatrice, exchange barbed comments and profess to detest that very idea of marriage. But the story eventually culminates in their marriage to each other. As a result, Benedict's name his name came to be applied to men who marry later in life.
Mm-hmm.
Huh, that's interesting. So the word didn't exist before that. I
Eggs-
wonder if Eggs Benedict has anything to do with that.
Eggs Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep.
Doctor Strange.
Rolls
Doctor
right off the
Strange.
tongue.
Doctor Strange.
I enjoyed this word of the day.
Did you?
One, the word didn't derive from like the 1400s and then changed 17 times. It makes no sense at all.
From the 1600s.
It was like, oh, it's a Shakespeare play that was so famous that then it became a pop culture reference. That's what I'm thinking. Like long ago, that basically became a pop culture reference. And then now
I'm
it's
trying to
been
think.
along so long that it's become an actual word.
I'm trying to think.
I think that's cool.
Hold on.
So yes, that is an archaic word. I agree. Nick's fish room. Ooh, he's a self-proclaimed word nerd. That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah. We've got 6 minutes of pure bliss. What are we going to do? 6-minute abs?
Pure chaos.
You can't do abs in 6 minutes.
You can't do abs in 6 minutes.
Yeah, that's why I don't do them. I never have 6 minutes.
That's what kind of came up with me, because I was thinking of a Benedict Arnold, because I was like, yeah. When I think of
Yeah.
Benedict, I think of the traitor, right? But I guess that also kind of makes sense too. Like if you kind of the traitor on your own statement that you were going to not get married.
Never get married. Yeah.
Right? So I guess it kind of has a double entendre, right?
Do you think we do tacos for dinner? It's $1 tacos.
It's tacos night, man.
All right, cool.
We were gonna get tacos earlier, but I got hung up at the DMV, you guys.
It's true. That literally happened.
Drag.
Yeah. So we got nothing. No one's got questions. Like, where's all the remedial new hobbyist questions in the last 6 minutes I could be answering?
Yeah, where's all those remedial new hobbyist questions?
Well, I'm going to start answering super chats. That's how desperate I am.
Are you desperate?
Would you ever set up a native tank, and what fish? I can't from Washington because it's illegal. But if I could, Olympic mud minnow, faux show.
Those Olympic mud minnows are dope. Mm-hmm. And thanks to the Fish Fam for cluing me in on them, because I didn't know that they were there until you guys pointed it out. Now I'm not aggressively looking, but I'm thinking that we might be able to work something out with the Native Corporation.
Could be. I know that David has asked this question a bunch of times, so I'm going to relay it to you because I know I haven't done it. Have you ever built a sump where water comes in on both ends and then the return is in the middle?
Yes, old school sumps were like that with the overhead trickle towers and stuff. So yeah, I have. I don't like it.
I never have.
I don't like it. It's wonky.
I will say I do hate tanks that have glass center overflows. I don't like that. I know that's not the same thing. I'm
the
just saying I don't
glass
like it.
center overflow?
Yeah, like let's say the 800 gallon, instead of having the hole in the back, like in the center, it was made out of acrylic. And then you build like all the stuff around it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
saltwater
yeah.
tanks do it. I'm just not a fan of it.
I was not a huge fan of those.
And I
either.
don't think they ever run that quiet. People always like, yeah, it's so quiet. And I'm like, No. You can hear it. That's the definition of not being quiet.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You're just
that's the-
over there. Yeah.
And there'd always be like algae and just stuff in there, and you could never hide it 100%.
Oddball Aquatics saying, "Hey Corey, do you think you can identify plants from a fuzzy video from the Congo?"
Oof, that
I would
seems
say
hard.
No.
I would say
Very detailed pictures of the root system, the leaf system.
I'll tell you who could.
You need multiple. What's that?
The plant collector guy we met in Dennerla. He goes and collects plants for him. That guy probably could.
Maybe, but fuzzy video and stuff like that. It's not how you'd identify. You identify from either extensive drawings of multiple stages of the plant, or detailed pictures of the plant, the root system, over
their fruit,
multiple
right?
seasons. You need multiple seasons and the fruit or the
Yeah,
flower, all that
phase
stuff.
or whatever. Yeah.
It's a little more difficult than just like taking a look and going like,
Ooh,
"Hey,
here's
that's
another
Anubias,
sump.
hey."
Some question for you. Are backflow preventers important for sumps?
At times, if you have an undersized sump, or you don't have a siphon break in your return that's going up into the tank, if you don't have a proper siphon break in there, or have it, enough volume to handle it if it turns off, then a backflow prevention would be important. I would not count on them personally because I've seen them fall apart so many times.
That's exactly where I was going.
And I'm even talking about in professional plumbing applications, we put in those ones that cost like $140 a piece.
Hey, snail's going to get where snail's going to get.
Well, we'd put the ones in that were like $140 a piece, and they'd fail. With just enough flow going through there and stuff, the mechanism just will fail on you. So I wouldn't count on them over a long period of time. I would, you could use them as a spot fix for a short period of time. Like if you do have an undersized sump and you go like, oh, I'm going to get, like I've already ordered a bigger one, or it's coming in 2 months or something like that. Like I've already paid for it, but it's just not here yet. Then you could use one for a short period of time, but it's only a Band-Aid. I wouldn't go for it.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid of like,
And it
you
slows,
can't rely on it.
it
That's the
slows
problem.
down the flow too. It gets in
Because,
the
yeah,
way,
the flapper
blocks flow.
is, yeah. And it's just a matter of time until you got a snail or something in there that's just like, oh, it doesn't close. And you're relying on it too. Yeah.
Temporary fix, cool. Permanent, no.
In a pinch, if I had one laying around, sure. All right, we got 1 minute left. I want to say thank you for all the super chats. I think at least my show, whatever, maybe we're all, I don't know, moving towards a format where we're going to funnel you guys. If you want to support what we're doing, support us on our personal Patreon pages instead of the super chat. Mostly because the super chats, it's hard to get the right question to line up with the right topic we're talking about and doing those types of things. And it becomes like we can plan like, oh man, great. There's $1,000. I know there'll be $1,000. Here's what we can do. Here's the budget. Like we talked about earlier, when we didn't have the budget to do that thing. Like it's hard when you go like right now we went. So for instance, the income that the Real Fish Talk made is down by 70% because we went to Germany. So it's one of those things like we don't really want to be like, the show just got 70% worse this month because we did something else on our other shows.
Right.
We want to be like still bringing the same level and all that kind of stuff. So that's the, the last little push there of like, if you want to support, like you might already be supporting me or Joel. And it's like, that is supporting Real Fish Talk. Also, we're just trying to move towards, we'll be doing that. Like if you can, I don't want to say you, if the people that are making the content are supported and can pay their bills so that, for instance, my wife can be at the shop working in my stead, then we can do a show like this. Same thing for you, that type of thing. So, the money being put into those two envelopes fund anything we end up working on. If there's Crazy Channel number 9 that we make and it's all disco music, you'll be supporting that as well. Which is coming
so
out.
I mean, it's and I understand there's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. You don't have to.
It's
you don't have
optional.
to do any of that
Yeah.
stuff. You don't have to do anything. It's optional. It's just really like kind of what we're working on. And one of the big things is that oftentimes as things get more and more popular, the chat goes by faster and faster and faster. And you guys understand. You've seen it before. I mean, if you go on to let's use an example of a chat that's unreadable. Like Philip DeFranco did a live show a while ago, and I was like, I couldn't even. It was going by so fast, I couldn't even read anything. And he was like they were like freaking out to answer all these super chats and stuff. And I was like, is this a show? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. And, you know, so it's really one of those things that like Patreon allows the people that are patronizing, you know, able to post stuff up onto the community pages, pictures, full on questions and stuff like that. And, you know, in the long term, as people that have been following my live show know that on Fridays, I answer from the Patreon community. And we'd like to expand more doing that to bring it here where he and I can argue about stuff. And
we can identify a fuzzy plant from the Congo in poor video.
At least try to.
Yeah, at least then
try.
you can go, no, I couldn't decipher it or whatever. It's a better thing than super chats are. And all I'm saying is if you were going to super chat, maybe put, you know, $5 towards Joel and then $5 towards me or something like that instead. Now, if you're a person that wasn't going to super chat and you don't want to pay money, we're not asking you to pay money. We're just saying that if you were already going to and you want to support, that's what we think is going to be the future, because Patreon will travel wherever we have to go. If YouTube hates us and we got to go to VMO, or we got to go to your house and just give you a live presentation, or we got to go to Willamette, Oregon.
Willamette,
Oregon.
Willamette.
Yeah, Whammy, Oregon. Whammy.
The Valley.
If we got to give it the whammy, then we can go there. So, you know.
That's also one of those things. That's what's helping us at least free up time to be able to like travel and like go to other fish clubs and stuff like that. Like it wouldn't be possible, you know?
Yeah. So thank you to everyone that has supported us in the past, is currently supporting us, may support us in the future. We hope to bring you a rockin' show next week. I'm hoping in my email we've got a confirmation for a guest. In my opinion, a very high-profile guest that is not normally seen, but they have a conflicting schedule as well, so we don't know if we can sneak them in. 2 weeks from that, we have another... Well, 2 weeks from today, there's like another YouTuber that's going to be in town. May or may not have been on the show before. People did love them. Won't be able to make this show, but he will be around, and we do own cameras, so we might be able to put that where that's, you know, we record and then you see it thing.
Where that could be happening.
Yeah, extracurricular videos.
Real fish talk.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. I had a lot of fun today. I actually enjoyed answering just a few of the super chats and then keeping the conversation rolling. I feel like there was some more cohesion there than I won't say than normal, than maybe last time or something. I don't know. We didn't have to get interjected or anything as much.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. Well, the analytics will tell us. You know, maybe you guys shared it out. Maybe you liked it.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll figure it out. But now, $1 tacos, all we can eat. Let's do this.